Welcome back.
Welcome to You Now Online Live. I'm your host, Moreno, and your co-host is Deborah Reynolds, the founder and president of About Face Image Consulting. Debbie, again, I'm most pleased you are here.
Always a pleasure, Moreno. We have a really great session today, and I'm super excited about our guest.
Yes, today we have a very special guest, Tim, whom we both know. You better than me because Tim and I attended your most interesting program titled Mastering Mental Fitness with Positive Intelligence. I will now bring him in and you can give him a warm welcome before I read his bio as an introduction. Shall we do that, Debbie?
Absolutely.
Tim Dyck is the owner of Best Culture Solutions in Fort McMurray. He helps employers have the right talent in place with recruiting, human resources, and career transition services. He also helps job seekers find a fulfilling career with resume writing and interview coaching services. He was recognized as the 2018 recipient of the Bowie Sustainable Leadership Award for building leadership capacity in a 5,000 person organization. Tim is also a proud Disney alumni. Tim, are you ready for the first question?
Sure, bring him on.
I am ready, and I'm relieved that Deb agreed to bring me on when you asked her to, because it would have been really awkward if she said, no, don't bring him in here when you asked. So thank you.
Yes, wouldn't it be?
Well, Tim, it's really a pleasure to have you on here because you and I have known each other for a while now and have worked closely together. But we've got some exciting news to share at the end of the program today. But I'd love Moreno to get into asking your first question because you've got this really great background and you've got a lot of valuable information to share for anybody that wants to be hired, that organizations that are recruiting. So let's get right into it. Moreno, why don't you ask that first question?
Tim, who do you help and why? In other words, what is their pain?
Yeah, I help employers and job seekers navigate the job market, and there's a lot of pain for people right now that are trying to do that on both sides. It's an overwhelming place to be. If you're an employer, it's overwhelming because all you hear about is great resignations, labor shortages, you can't find anybody. And it's as soon as you think about, well, I have to hire, the first thing that comes to mind is, am I going to find anybody? And am I going to find anybody, that's the right fit for us? And that it gets really intimidating, especially today, and it causes a lot of overwhelm. But even though it's a little bit of a worker's market right now, if you're out there searching, it's still overwhelming because even as a job seeker, you hear about all this volatility, increased online automation in the hiring process. I meet a lot of people that feel overwhelmed and stressed out by that. And so I help people navigate, all the different pains of the labor market and help them do so, confidently and with ease.
Yes, I can imagine that there are many tools online and probably a lot of new legislation that a person needs to be aware of and follow to do things right. So definitely,
absolutely,
they would be looking for somebody with your know-how and experience. Debbie, I think the next question is for you.
Yes. So Tim, share a little bit about some of the strategies and the tactics that you're using specifically to help your clients. What are you doing with them? The tools, strategies, tactics?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and thanks for asking that. So, let me start with when we help clients with recruiting, because one of the things that we do for our customers is we help them recruit the right talent, and that's really an endeavor that requires a really good tool set. And a lot of people don't even realize that there is a tool set for it. that you can use. So I, personally, Moreno had mentioned earlier that I'm a Disney alumni, and I'm very proud to be a Disney alumni. But the biggest thing that I took away from my time working for them 20 years ago was just how they identified and selected talent in their recruiting processes. And so I actually got trained and certified in the same interviewing techniques that they use to find the right person who is going to be committed to their mission. And being able to use that with my clients has helped them find really good self-motivated people, reduce turnover like crazy, and just increase business and bottom line results. And the best part about it is that it's not all about numbers and profit. It's while creating a really good place to work and a really strong culture. So being able to use those interviewing techniques has been a watershed for a lot of our customers and our clientele. When it comes to helping job seekers, I'm able to use that knowledge to help them navigate the job interview process really, really well, which has been helpful because now they know what a trained interviewer is thinking on the other side. And then as well, we have tools that we help with people's resumes to make sure that they're signaling to the right audiences and that they're going to get attention from people when they're applying online. All of these things, the biggest and most important tool that we use is an understanding of, really strong leadership and people strategies and how that companies and job seekers can leverage both sides of that for success in either the job market or in their careers.
Yeah, I loved what you were saying about the motivation aspect, because I mean, the idea of looking for people that are already self-motivated, which really helps for them to take a responsibility for developing their skills and taking that initiative. Really important to do that. Moreno, you have another question there for him.
Go for it.
Yes. This last question was very interesting because I think people are so very complex and it's difficult to understand people well enough to know if they're the right fit or not. So you are definitely the person to go to, Tim. The next question: what distinguishes you from others in your profession? In other words, what are your salient strengths and experience that you bring forward?
Yeah, well, thanks for asking. The biggest thing that really differentiates us is that we really believe in not just using these types of processes transactionally. There's any number of HR strategies out there or people strategies out there where you're really looking to create a transactional relationship or a transactional environment where you're just doing what you need to do to comply with the law or to get your processes done or to move people through the pipeline or the process. And I would rather use those tools specifically to create a people strategy that will create a culture that properly supports people and helps them thrive and makes sure that the right people are in the right places with the right tools. And it's all a really simple philosophy, is that you hire people right, you train people right, and then you treat them right at the end of it. And that really is a differentiator. There's a lot of people out there that can say, is your HR management system compliant with anything? Or we just need to process this because we need to process this paperwork. We need to get this person in the system. But it's how do you use those tools deliberately to create a really strong people culture? Because if you look at any number of the top 10 most admired companies in the world, they all have something in common. And that's that they're really deliberate to use those. They're really deliberate about using these tools to create a culture. And when I say culture isn't necessarily some airy-fairy term where there's a foosball table in the break room. Although you could have that as part of your culture strategy, but it's really about having shared assumptions, shared behaviors, and shared values. And are you making sure that you have the right people in the right places to achieve that in your culture? And I think that that's the biggest difference, is that we are very deliberate about using human resources and recruiting tools to help people on both sides of the table achieve that.
Interesting points. Yes, we have processes and tools. Many of them are new. They keep coming out. And I imagine that some people do forget the most important part of all this, which is the person. And as you're saying, understanding people, understanding the person is the most important and is the first place to start. Then once we understand the person, finding and applying the correct tools and preferred procedures is a much more effective and successful way of doing this that you do.
Very true. Yeah, you're very right.
I love the idea of the shared values component. I really find that that is one of the most critical things that we need to look at in organizations is the values and making sure there's that alignment instead of people butting heads, but that we've got this great synergy where they're working together. And that's a great philosophy that you're offering there. And I love, of course, it goes right back to your website name, Tim, which is Best Culture Solutions. And that is something that organizations really need to pay attention to is that culture.
You're so right. Yeah. And that's a very deliberate name too, because we don't want to attract, like, to be honest, we don't want to attract a clientele that just wants somebody to be a transactional partner with them, processing their, their people processes and operating them. We want to be partners in creating the right culture in those organizations because it means a lot. And it's funny because one of the things that sometimes people have objections over when you say shared values is that there's a misbelief or a misconception that means that you don't want any dissent or you don't want different ideas or opinions. And that's not true, is that if everybody has the same value set, if I think back to my experience at Disney, our shared value or our shared belief, there were a couple. One of them was that our purpose and our mission is simple. Everybody could recite it. We want to make sure that everybody who walks through these gates has the best vacation of their lives. And then the other ones is that we would prioritize, 4 things when it came to our values. It was people safety first, courtesy second, how did things look to people, show, right? Third, and efficiency with fourth. And you can have everybody agreeing on those values or bought into those values. And there's a lot of room within there for different approaches and different ideas to achieve that goal. And so one of the biggest objections that I find when people talk about culture and shared values is that they're afraid that you're going to create a situation where people can't dissent. But if everybody's wanting to go in the same direction, there's a lot of room for different ideas there as to how to get there. And if you create, and you actually get more of those ideas if you focus on having people with shared values, because instead of everybody fighting about these values that they don't share or aren't assumed or aren't known when they come in, people are instead focusing the conversation on, okay, so what's the best way forward to do this? And having that good, healthy conflict with each other about different ways and different options to achieve the goal.
Yeah, that's such an important point that you're making there. What I love is that it's not just within that corporate environment of the shared values, but that for people that are looking to be hired in an organization, that they need to really think about their own personal values, what they're bringing to an organization, how they're going to contribute and add value to the organization, so that they're not just blindly taking a position or a job, but that they're thinking that this is a company that's in line with what my belief systems are, my values, my thought processes, that I can actually grow and develop within this company.
1,000%. Yeah.
So we have a final question to ask you here.
Okay, bring it on.
When we apply people to processes and pitfalls, to processes and tools, there are always pitfalls. And that is what the final question refers to. And it's perhaps a little bit weirdly worded, so don't let that put you off, Debbie.
Sure. So tell us a little bit about the pitfalls that your clients should look out for, that you offer specific assistance to support them.
Okay, so if I understand the question correctly, is if they're looking for services like mine, what to look out for, or what to...
So there are pitfalls that they should look out for when they're looking for a particular recruiter, somebody to support them in the process of 2 aspects: the prospect coming in to be hired in an organization, and then the organization who is wanting to look for the ideal prospect, the new hire to come in. So there's sort of 2 different perspectives here.
Okay. So so there's a couple of perspectives here. So first of all, when looking for a recruiter, here's what I would tell people. And we're not the only ones that do this. There's other ones out there, but I would search for a recruiter that isn't focused on time cost of hire, but focused on quality of hire. Here's why. A lot of times, so when you get into contingency-based recruiting, the goal is to make the placement. And so a lot of times you get a lot of candidates thrown at you because they want to make the placement so that way they can get the fee. And there's nothing wrong. I know a lot of good recruiters that operate that way. And a lot of them that do that aren't quite hustlers. But what I'm trying to say is just look out for people who are focused on time cost over quality. Because the thing about time cost of hire that a lot of people used to measure their hiring by, how long did it take us and how much did it cost us to get somebody in place? If you focus on time and cost, you're going to rush yourself and you're not going to find the right person. You need to find somebody who can work with you on a process that's going to focus on quality of hire. And earlier I mentioned contingency-based recruiters. That's not to say that they can't do that. I know lots of great contingency-based recruiters that do, but sometimes as well, just because the nature of it, it does force sometimes a rush decision focused on time cost as well. So no matter who you're working with or their billing structure, I would say focus on whether or not they're going to be looking for quality of hire over time cost. That's huge. The second biggest pitfall that I see anybody make, recruiters, employers, anybody, when it comes to recruiting, is they say, I really want a candidate who's going to hit the ground running. That's great. Everybody wants that. That's awesome. I agree. We do want a candidate that's going to hit the ground running. But then when you ask them, what does that look like? What they tell you is that they want somebody with a whole ton of experience specifically in that industry, you know, in a place that's as similar to the place that you have as possible, because they think that when you find that, they're just going to come in. You don't have to train them. They're already there, and they already know what to do. And I would tell you that experience is probably actually the worst measure of whether or not they can hit the ground running, because you need to be motivated to hit the ground running. Self-motivation is the best way, and in my opinion, the only way to really determine just how likely any candidate is to hit the ground running. Because if you don't have a self-motivated candidate, they're not going to run at all, much less hit the ground running. You need to find somebody self-motivated. And I would actually tell you that you're better off having somebody that is self-motivated and has the right technical skill set, but might not have experience in your exact industry, than you are finding somebody with 30 years of experience if that person is more self-motivated than the other one. Now, don't get me wrong, if you find somebody with experience and self-motivation and you adjudicate that properly, that's a good thing too. That's great. But I would never take experience over attitude, because it pays, like, there's predictable results, but it happens so much because people just see an empty chair and they just want somebody in there that can do the work. And also, I'll be honest, sometimes there's a tacit or implied laziness in that. They don't want to develop the right person. And so they just fill the chair with something that they think is going to hit the ground running with experience. So in the short term, a lot of times experienced people can start their performance here, but it's going to plateau. If you get somebody that doesn't necessarily have the direct experience, they might start here, but their learning curve is just going to take off. And their long-term performance will be way better, and they're more likely to stay with you for longer as well. The other reason why I really recommend hiring for attitude instead of in industry, very specific experience is because you don't innovate very well when you keep taking people from the industry and putting them in jobs. You don't get new ideas. You don't get new looks at the industry. You don't get fresh perspectives on what's going on from the outside world. And your company can actually, like, you could die. You'll stop innovating. And if that's all you focus on, that's not good. And so, you know, I would always encourage people to find a way or come up with interview questions that are, and there's a way this is possible, to come up with interview questions that are going to determine if somebody is going to be self-motivated to use the technical skills that you need them to use in this job. And then if they are, find the best, most self-motivated person, do that, and then train them on your company, your processes, and all that stuff. And it will pay off in spades. One great example that I can think of is, you know, I had a customer that wanted an accountant from the medical industry, right? I had a lot of great candidates that just weren't from the medical industry, and it's accounting. They are certified accountants, you know, but they just hadn't worked in medicine before. And that that customer wasn't really willing to entertain that, but they missed out on a whole bunch of great candidates, and candidates that, frankly, after 2 to 3 weeks would have had enough learning to hit the ground running, probably more so than somebody with experience. And the other thing too is that it doesn't matter how much experience that somebody has, they still need to relearn everything in your business. And so if they're not self-motivated, they're not going to be self-motivated to relearn your business and understand how you do things as well.
Yeah, no, what you're mentioning there about that learning curve initially of getting to know the business and how that operates, that takes a lot of time and energy in getting to know the key people in the organization, who knows what, how things are done typically within the organization. And you really need a self-motivated person to kind of navigate through all that. Yeah, those are great points that you shared, Tim. We appreciate that very much. Moreno, any words there?
I like Tim's answer to the last question. A lot of passion. It came with a lot of passion. And I was just wondering, who is most responsible for a candidate's enthusiasm, passion for the opportunity? Is it the individual or the company that is responsible for the motivation factor?
Yeah. Okay. So the answer is both. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Companies often say, well, how do we motivate our people? Right. And the simple truth is that they're either motivated or they're not when you hire them. If you're a company trying to come up with an engagement plan and you think it's going to motivate people to do something differently or more than you're currently doing, it's not going to happen. They either are motivated or not. And so in the context of your question, they bring the motivation. It's the candidate who does. And you need to identify that, and you need to interview people for motivation, which is something actually most employers aren't trained on or don't know how to do. However, the company and the organization is just as responsible. I mean, everybody has to take ownership for the culture, the feeling, the aura that's around your organization. And while a company cannot create that motivation, like I've just alluded to, if somebody comes into you self-motivated and you don't have your culture defined properly and people hired to support that culture, the values, the behaviors, you could really motivated people really quickly, and they'll be out looking for another job really quickly. So I would tell you, Moreno, that both sides are responsible for that. The candidate's got to bring it, and there's no way that you can instill it in them if they don't already have it. But the company can sure ruin it if they don't, act in a way that cultivates that and nurtures that.
Makes sense. Tim, can I ask you about your experience now?
Absolutely.
Okay. How was this experience for you? In other words, what did you like about this experience being online with us? And how do you think it will benefit you?
Yeah, wow, what a great question. I've never been asked a question like this before on a podcast or a show that I've done. And so I actually really like this. And I like the fact that you're asking people this and asking them to think about it. So what did I like about it? It was an experience where I was able to share and pay forward different things that I have been very fortunate to learn from mentors in my career and learn from people that I've come to know and meet through having had the opportunity to spend time at Disney and elsewhere in my career. And I love sharing that with people because I know firsthand from managing my own larger teams, just the effects and benefits that you can have by implementing these practices within your teams. And so I always like paying that forward. How will it benefit me? I think that it will benefit me in that it will help me use this to other people's benefits, because every time you get a chance to talk about something, you get better at it every time when it comes to helping people see, understand, and know how it can benefit them, and using the knowledge and the tools to help others. So the biggest benefit to me from being here today is that by getting another iteration to talk about how these tools and processes can help others, it's gotten me better at using the knowledge to help others and help other people through people processes.
All valid points, and you'll see them listed in the list of benefits, which I have here. We get to know you. You get to know us. More people will get to know, like, and trust you, which is going to result in an increase in your visibility, exposure, and influence. You get practice presenting online, live, and by addressing questions from the audience live is the best way to build trust online. The event gets recorded and stays on LinkedIn, unless you want the recording deleted. That is an option. Also, the recording can be downloaded as a live event to be viewed afterwards. The content for creating short marketing videos comes from a live program like this, which, as you know, is recorded. And the candidate gets experience with live video, because this LinkedIn Live is one example of live video, and also gets experience creating content for video marketing. Now, for those watching, be next online live, like Tim. It's easy and quick. How? Direct message Deborah or myself on LinkedIn. When? Now. Act. Don't wait. So we have reached the end of today's program. That was 20 minutes of thought-provoking recruiting know-how from Tim. Tim, thank you so much for sharing your ideas and experience. Any last words from you, Tim?
No, you know what, I would tell people that it takes self-discipline to really dig in on your recruiting processes and your people processes. And it is hard work. But I also know that it's even harder work if you don't. So it pays off, it's worth it. And it pays off for all the right reasons. And I just very much appreciate and value the opportunity to be here with you today. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim. And Debbie, we appreciate your participation. As always, thank you. Any last words from you?
Thanks, Moreno. It's always a pleasure. Tim, always amazing to chat with you. Love the information that you were sharing with us today and to our audience. And to our audience, I want you to join Tim Dyck and Derek Iannelli for the LinkedIn Live program, Recruit, Hire, and Lead to Retain, which will be happening every 2 weeks. And our very first session will be starting tomorrow, July 22nd at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. We hope that you will join us.
Don't miss that. It's within 24 hours. To everyone else watching now live or the recording later, thank you too. Now, direct message us to your continued success and good health. Goodbye until our next LinkedIn Live.